So I'm Nick, and I live in Cumberland, and I want to share with you an experiment that our family embarked on for a few months, and some of the things we learnt along the way. But first, just a brief introduction. I'm not from around these parts, as you might be able to tell. I grew up in a small village in England, and I spent my early career here and places like it, crawling around chemical plant, and work had me spending far too much time doing this around Britain, around Europe, over to America. So after I met a rather amazing Canadian, which is one of those things that happens, we agreed it would be fun to live somewhere like this. And so we had a couple of these guys coming along for the ride, and we bought one of these. And we set off for a couple of years, and we were fortunate enough to go to some pretty amazing places on this planet. And they are truly wonderful, beautiful places. It caught up with us that behind the scenes, there's often, not far away from places like this, there's always something not quite so great that you come across. And you begin to realize that even the prettiest of places can't escape the clutches. This is an uninhabited, lonely island paradise. We were probably the only people there. And you skip across the beach to the other side of the island, and you find washed up on the beach piles of plastic and glass. And it doesn't really matter how deep you dig your hands into this beach, you still find particles of plastic. And it kind of saddens you. But let's just skip forward a few thousand kilometers, and we somehow find ourselves washed up on the shores of Cumberland. Does Cumberland have shores? Actually, on the shores of the TEDxComoxValley. Shortly after we got here, this event happened. Many of you remember this. Huge oil slick in the Gulf of Mexico. And I kind of wanted to know a bit more. I'm an engineer. And I disappeared down one of those internet rabbit holes that take some getting back out of. And I started worrying about peak oil, peak everything. Certainly suffered from some peak oil blues for a while, and sort of wondered what we should be doing differently. And every day we'd throw something out, we'd recycle something, we'd give something away, and as a family we got to wondering just how much of that do we do? You know, if we measure it, maybe we can understand it, maybe we can make a difference. And so I don't know how often you all visit Cumberland. You should visit probably more than you do. But you all send us a gift every week. And it comes up a hill and ends up something like this. And it really adds up. So if every little bit matters and every little bit counts, how can we do our little bit? So as a family, we discussed it. We found some bathroom scales, put them by the front door, and every time we brought something into the house, put it on the scales, noted on the clipboard, and every time we took stuff out of the house, we'd weigh it and see what happened. And we had the family doing this for a couple of months, and they didn't hate us quite as much as I expected. But we did start to find some things out. We got pretty smug about our garbage. Yeah, you know, 1 bag this week, awesome. And the recycling was much the same. And a surprising amount of stuff could be composted. And we were already doing that, and it was nice to just see how much could just go in the back garden. So when we looked for patterns that were emerging from our clipboard and our numbers, I'm an engineer, I do numbers. Every week we were doing about 5 kilograms of garbage, 5 kilograms of recycling, and 5 kilograms of compost. So if you've ever wondered whether this kitchen waste collection that I know we do in Cumberland and Comox, whether that's worth doing, well, that's your answer. We would have doubled our landfill if we'd not put it in the compost. So that was an interesting conclusion. But we were looking at this, and coming into the house was about 40 kilograms of food and packaging, and going out of the house was about 15 kilograms. So some of us got to wondering where else that was going. And we weren't ready to measure some things. But it does beg the question, well, hang on a minute. That doesn't go out of the house on its own. So I asked the village. We were using about 500 kilograms of water every day. That's a lot of water. Now, not all kilograms are equal in this analysis. I'm hardly going to say a kilogram of water is a problem like a kilogram of garbage at the landfill. But it does mean something. It does mean we've, as a society, built and maintained an infrastructure to get 1/2 a ton of stuff into and out of our houses every single day. And that takes some doing. And we don't think about it. So whilst we're thinking about water, I never really worked out, because it was quite difficult, how much water flows through this dam up in Campbell River to keep our lights on and wherever else it goes. But I bet you that's a lot of water that provides our electricity. But it also started us thinking about the other things that weren't ending up on those scales on the front porch, because we were getting smug about our 5 kilograms of garbage. How much of this did we do? Turns out about 50 litres a week with what we were doing. That's 40 kilograms. So if I took 40 kilograms of gasoline and poured it out on the road in front of your house, I think you'd get pretty upset with me. There'd probably be these guys coming around to clear it up. And I wouldn't want this to happen again. So I don't pour 40 kilograms of gasoline on the road outside your house. Instead, I'm much more sensible and I do this with it. Right? And so immediately we knew that 8 times the amount of garbage we were throwing out was flowing into and therefore out of our car every week. And if you worry about CO2, and I'd argue you should, every kilogram of CO2 of fuel turns into 3 kilograms of CO2. So that's 24 times the bags of garbage is going out of the tailpipe of our car. So while we were doing this little experiment, that car I'm talking about broke down. It was terminal. Transmission, can't replace them, it's gone. And so we had to get it towed away and sent to the scrapyard. And some smart aleck on my Facebook page said, "Did you weigh it?" Okay, yes, so we worked it out. This is a 2,500 kilogram car. And we'd had it for 4 years before it went off to the scrapyard. So working that out, it represents 12 kilograms for every week we'd had that car going out as garbage stroke recycling. That's, just owning a car was more than our garbage and recycling put together in terms of our weekly impact on the waste stream, right? And the car wasn't the only stuff that came in and out of our house. Many of you will have seen the Sawyer stuff. If you haven't, go Google it, go watch it. It's quite fun and quite enlightening and rather depressing. But in fact, we found that there was about 15 kilograms of sort of non-food stuff that we would bring into our house. And because we don't want our house to look like this, we take about 15 kilograms every week back out again. And we like to give it to thrift stores and to people who can make use of it. But really, we know that's just pushing it on down the chain. If you push it on down the chain, it ends up here. So even though we were trying really hard not to buy a lot of stuff, just owning the car and the things that came in and came out already represented 5 times the garbage we thought we were distributing to our landfill. Right? Now, in the middle of all this worry about our footprint on the planet, we received a beautiful invitation to my eldest cousin's wedding. My 50-year-old cousin who was getting married for the first time in England. It was going to be the family reunion of the decade, and we couldn't not go. So we went. And the 4 of us bought our tickets and headed off and flew 7,500 kilometers and flew back. That's why we're here. And that was 1,500 kilograms of fuel to get the 4 of us to England and back. And that's 375 kilograms a week because we went for 4 weeks. So let's call it 375 kilograms. That's 75 times the garbage we'd thrown out in any of those weeks. Now, even if we go and do that once a year, partly because we did this experiment, we haven't actually, we don't fly like that once a year, but imagine we take a long-haul flight once a year. That's still 28 kilograms of fuel every week. So as soon as I get on a plane, I might as well have bought the Hummer. So we learned that in weight terms, Our weekly nominal garbage was the same as our recycling, was the same as our compost. And I think qualitatively, we'd all say that compost is better than doing recycling, is better than throwing it in the landfill. But if we're going to care enough to care about making a difference by recycling, I'd argue that we can make as much of a difference by slight changes to our driving habits, by considering the amount of stuff we buy and the homes we have to hold all of that stuff, and by thinking a little differently about our travel plans. So as a family, we've turned this into some little maxims that we try. Really, you have to try, and you can't always stick to it, but we try to live by, which is drive less, and preferably in smaller vehicles. Live in smaller houses, and then you only have to have so much stuff. And try not to get on aeroplanes. But I'll put that another way. Drive less! Cycling's more fun anyway. Live in smaller houses. We love small places. And when you live in the best place on earth, maybe you don't always have to get on an aeroplane. Thank you.